Morning, guys. Welcome to the current affairs discussion. Uh, we we will be discussing about all the important topics that are necessary for both films and mains. Right. Today we are going to discuss newspaper Hindu, and the date is June 27th. Right. Versus the appeals that have been given by Prime Minister Modi, there have been high imports of what you call gold smuggling. Right. And these are things that actually India has to monitor. Whenever things are not going in a way that we actually prepared for, and things like these are happening, obviously would impact India's economy. Right? This is the first article that we'll be discussing. I mean, the editorial. The cracks beneath the pedal story of India's growth. Basically, this editorial is talking about how India's growth has not been as uh, good as we thought. Many people, or many of the indexes, or many of the scholars have told that India has been growing in a rapid pace, and the rapid economic growth helps it reach its goal faster. But while everyone is saying that, this particular editorial is saying otherwise. What is this particular editorial saying? The author is saying that while everything is going on, right? While everyone is saying that we have everything good, we are third in the economy, we have good PPP around the globe, but there are deep structural issues, deep economic and structural issues. It's saying that we have deep economic issues and structural issues, which is uh, actually not helping us, but actually making us more weaker because we are more import dependent. There's a high amount of unemployment. There is low investment. Right? These are the things that actually are troublesome for India's economic growth. Right? As there is high amount of import dependence, unemployment, low investment, low technological advancement. Right? This is not helping us grow further. The author is saying that while India has grown to become a global power, while India has grown to become a global power, it has not reached, or it has still many drawbacks or many gaps, right? Many gaps that are actually existent, which ensures that it does not become a superpower like China or US. What does India have to do, or what are the actual gaps that we have, is what this editorial is actually talking about. Firstly, it says that India is highly energy import dependent. Right? India is highly energy import dependent. Obviously, we know that we have seen the recent war that has happened, USA, Iran, and Israel. While the war has happened, did anything bad happen to India? Yes, obviously, because we were hit directly, and our energy security's vulnerability has been shown, due to which India had to release E100, which India planned after few years. E85 and E100, India did not plan at all. The reason India launched E100 and E85 was because India was in a very vulnerable position, as it could not import oil from Russia. It could not import oil from other countries because the import prices were very high, and our what do you call bills were getting increased. That is the reason India launched E100. If you actually see, when the war happened and there was a high amount of supply chain disruption, what happened? There are high oil prices in India. As there is high oil prices in India, there is inflation. Obviously, inflation is nothing but high oil prices. Inflation was high. As inflation was high, the prices of goods and services also increased. As the price of goods and services also increased, what happened? The demand started to decrease. As the demand started to decrease, what happened? Growth also started to decrease. This is the drawback of being import dependent. So India is still import dependent on energy, where it requires 90%. 90% of imports of oil, and nearly half of natural gas imports. Right? Half of natural gas imports and 90% of oil imports are still import dependent. Right? That is the first drawback that India has. And the second drawback is fertilizers. Fertilizers obviously depends on imports of LNG. Right? Based on the LNG, we also make the fertilizers. So importing of fertilizers, I mean, production of fertilizers is dependent heavily on the imported LNG. That is another aspect why India is on the drawback, right? And this is the reason why there is high amount of global chain, global supply disruption. There is high amount of global supply disruption. As there is high amount of global supply disruption, there is what increase in fertilizer prices. There is high amount of increase in fertilizer prices, and also affects the agriculture production. Right. It also affects the agriculture production, meaning that whenever there is a disruption of liquefied natural gas, the production of fertilizers also starts to get disrupted. As the disruption of fertilizers happens, what happens? There is an increase in price of fertilizers. As there is an increase in price of fertilizers, there is effect in production. As there is effect in production, there is reduced production. As there is reduced production, there is less income. As there is less income, there is less demand. Again, as there is less demand, there is less growth. You see the ripple effect. This is what economies. Whenever anything is happening in economy, or whenever you are studying economy, right? If there is an exchange in one aspect, look at that exchanges multiple effects. Do not look at exchange as exchange only. Look at what exchange can do. If you actually see here, the disruption in liquefied natural gas is leading to an increase in price of fertilizers, which is disrupting the production. As there is disruption in production, there's increase in prices. I mean, sorry, decrease in farmer income. As there is decrease in farmer income, there is decrease in demand. As there is decrease in demand, there is less growth. What does it say? It says that there is a chain. There's a chain reaction in any of the aspects when there is a part of economy is what do you call disrupted. Okay, so that is the other thing. And the third thing is weakening of rural safety nets. Weakening of rural safety. What does weakening of rural safety nets mean? Meaning that after the abolition of planning commission and in the recent times, the government has started focusing on Manrega. Manrega is nothing but the employment generation scheme, whereas planning commission, which came up with the fire plan, right? Came with a fire plan. Problem, the reason why they call what you call this weakening as the weakening of the safety nets is because, firstly, planning commission planned uh, the long term for 5 years, right? Planning commission planned for 5 years. In those 5 years, there is high amount of inclusion of rural development. They would say that for the 5 years we have this plan, and in this plan, rural development would be like this. So all the farmers or the laborers or the workers in the rural areas would be happy, meaning that let's say they said that Manrega will continue, and this is the amount of funds we are going to release for Manrega. So they would be happy saying that Acha, Manrega is safe now. For the next 5 years, I think we have high amount of economic security because planning commission also released funds. Now, as the planning commission had been removed, and in place of it, Niti Aayog came into existence, what does Niti Aayog do? Niti Aayog focuses on federalism. Niti Aayog focuses on federalism, not more on development. It focuses a lot on federalism and cooperation between center and states. As it is doing that, it is not doing a long-term plan, and it does not also have the power to issue funds. As it does not have power to issue funds and does not plan something long term, there is reduced economic security in the rural areas. So that is why the safety net of the rural areas has been weakened, is what the author is saying. Right? That is the third aspect. And the fourth aspect is remittances. India receives high amount of remittances, and states like Maharashtra, Kerala, all of these states have received remittances from many areas. For example, let's say Maharashtra, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, all these states receive high amount of remittances from European countries like USA, UK, and also Eastern countries like UAE. All of these, right? While all this is happening in the current era, there are high amount of policies that actually stop the remittances. Countries such as USA and UK started to notice that more amount of Indians are migrating to their country. As there are more number of Indians migrating to their country, the local people do not have jobs. So their main priority is to protect the local people. So what are these countries doing? They're putting immigration policies. Right? As they're putting immigration policies, what will happen? Obviously, it will affect the remittances. If you remember, your Donald Trump had put many restrictions on the H-1B visa, and that is the reason many people are not even coming to India, because they are scared that what if I come to India and they do not let me back in? They don't come to India, they do not do anything. So there is high amount of uncertainty in these countries, which is leading to reduced jobs and reduced security. So that is why remittances also have been reducing. That is the other problem. The first problem is high import dependence based on energy. Second one is high for fertilizers and its production vulnerability. And third one is rural safety nets. As I was talking, there's high amount of rural safety nets weakening, right? Fourth one is remittances. And fifth one is foreign investment. Foreign investment is another concern. While FPI and all of these are very important for India, what you need to understand is that how FPI and all of these are working. And with high amount of instability in the government and high amount of corruption happening and high amount of economic vulnerability, any company would not be willing to invest in India. Right? The companies will not be willing to invest in India. When will companies be willing? Only when the particular landscape is actually feasible and it is economically profitable. That's when all of the companies will think that, yeah, it's better for us to invest here. If they do not see all of this, what will they do? They will obviously take all of the money. And when they're taking all of the money, what will they do? They'll convert it into rupees. So there is a weakening of rupee. There is high amount of supply of rupee, and there is low demand for rupee. When according to the economic laws, whenever there is high supply of something and low demand of something, it will obviously become weak. So whenever FPI withdraws money, there is high supply of rupees and low demand of rupees. That is when India's rupee is weakened and our import bill will increase. As our import bill will increase, what will happen? Our expenditure will also increase. And what is this expenditure about? This expenditure is about clearing all of the loans. So it is nothing capital. All of this is revenue. Whenever there is high amount of revenue expenditure and low capital expenditure, what will happen? Reduced investment and high amount of going out. So India will not be on the path of development then. So that is another reason why uh, foreign investment is also a weakening part or a structural gap in India's growth. Right? Then you have the technological gap. India has high amount of potential. India has very high amount of potential. India can do a lot of things, and India has a lot of resources. But India does not have resources in technological aspects to extract them. Right? Without being able to extract or without being able to do things, how can India be on the path of development? So that is another aspect, like technological gaps. And the last aspect is manufacturing and unemployment. While the manufacturing has been growing, there is high amount of unemployment also because there is reduced demand. If you actually see in all of the aspects that I've been talking about, what is the show? They only show there is high amount of import dependence. They do not show demand internally. When there is no internal demand, what will happen? How will internal demand increase? Only when exports are increased or demand in India is increasing. Only these two aspects would lead to increase in manufacturing. Otherwise, there will not be anything. Okay. So we are highly import dependent, meaning that we are less we are exporting less. Second thing is that when we are highly import dependent, there is no internal demand because we are obviously the demand is coming from what? External only. Everyone wants the McDonald's burger, but no one wants the burger that is made in India. So there is no demand for Indian burgers. Everyone wants the McDonald's burgers. There is high import bill. This is just an example. I'm not saying that India imports McDonald's. Right? Okay. So as there is high amount of import, there is less amount of demand in India, due to which there is low manufacturing. When there is low manufacturing, what happens? Unemployment. Many people are not even unemployed. Obviously, when again, let us look at the ripple effect. No unemployment, more unemployment, less income, less income, less demand, again, less growth. You actually see everything is connected to growth. As long as everything is connected to growth, I think India has to be very careful. Only when it is very careful, obviously, it will be on the path of superpower. Until and unless then, India has to bear all of this, right? And obviously, all these recommendations are to increase research and development and increase amount of expenditure done to the rural areas, right? All of the gaps that are actually present, author wants to reduce it. But what you need to understand is that while everything is happening, India is also on the brighter side. We have high amount of production intensives, right? We have PLI scheme, which is highly on manufacturing, right? Then you have uh, India as the world's fastest, right? India is the world's fastest growing major economies. Why would any country or any index say that India is the world's fastest major growing economies if they do not see its capabilities? Obviously, they saw something and they noticed something. Just because you have structural gaps doesn't mean that India is not growing, right? That is what the author should also think, right? This is mainly a critique on the government, but it should not be a critique on government. It should be something that is pro our government and pro our country, right? And the third thing is that there is high amount of infrastructure investment, right? Infrastructure investment also increased. So we should also keep all of these things in mind when we are actually looking at the negative side. Obviously, whenever there's a thesis, there should also be an antithesis, right? That is all about this particular editorial. Next, we have India New Zealand FTA, a modern trade partnership. In this editorial, this is not just a normal editorial. It's talking a little more than that. What is it saying? It's saying that while the FTA is usually concentrated on the tariff, the New Zealand FTA is concentrating more on other things. What is that? It is changing the way you look at an FTA. Previously, FTAs only focused on tariff barriers. So, if a country is having an FTA with another country, what does that actually mean? In the old times, it meant only that there's reduced amount of tariffs. So everything is free trade. That is what they meant. But now, in this particular free trade agreement, there is change. What is that change? There is high amount of non-tariff barrier concessions. And there are high amount of non-tariff barrier concessions. What is non-tariff barrier concession? Non-tariff barrier concession is nothing but where any barrier is not based on tariff. For example, let's say rule of origin. Rule of origin is a non-tariff barrier. Similarly, European Union's carbon border adjustment mechanism. Again, what is this? This is a non-tariff barrier. All of these barriers are nothing but non-tariff barrier concessions. In the New Zealand and India FTA, we have included not only the tariff barriers, we have not only gotten the concession on tariff barriers, we have also gotten concession on the non-tariff barriers. This is the change that the modern FTAs are seeing. This is why the FTAs are different. right? This is why the FTAs are different than the older FTAs. Now, what are the changes that this particular New Zealand and FTA had gone through? Right. The first thing is that let us look at the stats. There is high amount of merchandise export between India and India and New Zealand. That is nearly 1.3 billion, $1.3 billion, right? And India's exports to New Zealand had nearly accounted to 711, $711 million. So what does it say? It clearly says that India and New Zealand are a good partner. While they are good partners, now the FTA changes the game completely. FTA ensures that there is high amount of 100% duty-free trade. Duty-free trade in apparel, textile, leather, all of these aspects, right? There is high amount of duty-free trade. The first thing is duty-free trade. The second thing is greater opportunities. Greater opportunities in IT, services, engineering, or manufacturing. In all of these areas, there is high amount of greater opportunity. And obviously, there is high amount of investment, investment commitment, right? There is an investment commitment which is nearly over $20 billion. There is an investment commitment of nearly $20 billion. Now, why is it? Uh, why is the modern trade beyond the tariffs? The reason I was talking about is one, rule of origin. Rule of origin is the first thing why it is beyond, right? It is beyond tariff. What is the rule of origin? Rule of origin is nothing but where you determine whether that particular object or whether that particular product is from that particular country. Let's say India and New Zealand, there's a FTA, right? And it says that India is exporting nearly 100 kgs of steel. Now, according to the rule of origin, it's saying that whether that steel is produced from India or not. China is very cunning. What does China do? China will export its own steel, and that steel is of very low quality. As it is of very low quality, India will get at a very low price. Let's say 1 kg steel that China is selling at 50 rupees. Just an idea. Okay, 1 kg steel is sold at 50 rupees by China to India. So 100 kgs of steel is nothing but 500. Sorry, 5,000. Now, India is selling this 5,000 at 10,000 rupees to New Zealand. So who is at loss and who is at profit? Obviously, New Zealand is at loss. India is at profit. Even China is at profit because China also offloaded its what you call cheap stock. Okay. Now the problem is New Zealand is getting a drawback. So in order to reduce this drawback, they came with the rule of origin, where they check whether that particular product has been originated in India or not. Okay, that is called rule of origin, and that is the first rule. And other than that rule, you have trade facilitization. Right? Trade facilitization. Trade facilitization is nothing but facilitating trade. How do you facilitate trade? You facilitate trade by reducing the clearances, by reducing the checks, by reducing the need of certificates. Only when you reduce all of this, you would facilitate easier trade. Okay, that is what this particular trade facilitization means. And obviously, whenever there is high amount of trade facilitization, there is low logistic costs, then better exports. These are the things that are actually of importance, right? And when all this is happening, businesses have to be prepared for the FTAs. Businesses have to be prepared for the FTAs because this FTA is not a modern. This FTA is not like an old FTA where it is only focusing on tariffs. It is focusing on more than tariffs. It is also focusing on quality. It is focusing on transparency and accountability. So businesses that are actually exporting their goods and services have to be prepared for this modern FTA. What do they have to do? They have to be in line with harmonization system. Harmonization system is nothing but categorization of products. The categorization of products is based on the amount of product that is used and what are the components of that product and in which category it is. That is nothing but a harmonization system. First thing is they have to be in line with the harmonization system. And the second thing is that they have to what you call ensure compliance of rules of origin. Ensure compliance of rules of origin. That is the second thing. And third thing is that they have to obviously strengthen the supply chain. There's no more imports, more exports would need a stronger supply chain. Right? A stronger supply chain is another aspect. And the last aspect is that we have to what do you call maximize the benefits. Maximize the benefits of FTA. These are the things that all the business that have to focus on. Right? And for today's class, I thought I would give you guys a question, right? Based on the editorial that we just talked about. Right? Here the question says, modern FTA goes beyond tariff reductions, discussed with reference to the proposed India-New Zealand FTA. Right? That is what the question is. What would you write in this question? Basically, in the introduction, you would write how the New Zealand and India had recently signed an FTA with nearly 1.3 billion trade and 711 million exports. India has a very good tie with New Zealand. However, this new FTA shows change and transition from the older FTA, right? Then you would write about characteristics of old FTA. This is a non-core dimension, right? Whenever you're writing a question, there's a core dimension and there's a non-core dimension. So in this question, first you'll be writing about the stats and how there's a transition between old FTA and new FTA. Then you'll be writing the features of old FTA, which is based on tariff or goods coverage or what you call limits on goods. These are the things that old FTAs had. They did not have much compliance. Then you would go on to the core dimension. What is the core dimension? The core dimension says that modern FTAs or modern FTA agreements go beyond tariff reductions, discussed with reference to proposed India-New Zealand FTA. So you would write about how modern FTAs going beyond tariff. Right? You do this, and then you write points like rules of origin. Then you would write about trade facilitization. Right? You would give more examples on what rules of origin is and how it be helpful in terms of New Zealand and trade facilitization. What are the clearances? What are the certificates that India and New Zealand actually had, and how would that help in terms of New Zealand? And then again, as a non-core dimension, you would write what businesses should do or preparing India for modern FTs. This is what you would write. Okay? This is the other dimension. In this, you would write about how India has to link with modern harmonization system. It has to strengthen the supply chain. It has to follow the rules of origin, right? All these aspects you would write, and then you would conclude. Conclude saying that the era of old FTAs has been stopped, and the current new FTAs would ensure that India's progress and India's quality is ensured in lines with its principles and for a progressive growth. Right? This is how you would write this particular answer, right? Right. So try to write this answer in your own paper. Try to read this particular editorial and write an answer so that you would gain the skill of answer writing. Right? I'll show you guys this particular question once more so that you can write this answer on your own. Right? The question is: modern FTA, modern free trade agreements go beyond tariff reduction, discussed with reference to the proposed India-New Zealand FTA. Right? That is the question. and you can write this question for a 10 marker. I wouldn't focus much on the 15 marker right now. Right? For the time being, you can write this as a 10 marker and post it in the comment box, or what do you call it? Keep it as a file. Right? So that is all for today's newspaper analysis. I'll come back with another mains question tomorrow. Thank you guys.